I am 70 years young, although today I feel like I'm 30. I am a retired sales executive turned author. I am incredibly fortunate to be married to the lovely and talented Susan DiCrescenzo. We live on Lake Lanier in Gainesville, Georgia. We love to travel, usually with our spoiled little doggy in tow. Before cancer hit, I was diagnosed with a benign brain tumor called an acoustic neuroma. And I had 10 hours of successful surgery back in 1995. 1996, I made the most important decision of my life. And I know it's going to sound strange to hear that, but just going to the corner store and buying a newspaper was the most important thing I've ever done, because I had been alone for 15 years, bachelor, and I was getting bored and lonely and getting in a rut, opened up to the personals, and one caught my eye and said, I took a chance, dialed the number, nice young lady answered the phone. We had a very pleasant hour-long conversation, talked about, who we were, what we did, etc. This is our 27th year together. And unfortunately, I've had to put her through a lot. And she's, she kind of gets a look on her face like, I'm not really, when I say you are the strongest person I've ever known. But I really have, unfortunately, put her through a lot. We met in 96. About 6 months after we met, the first gift I gave her was to have sit through 12 hours of excruciating brain surgery because my tumor came back. And then we had 20 uninterrupted years of wonderful times, lots of travel. We go to Florida a lot. We go to the Panhandle of Georgia. And then all of a sudden, March of 2018, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And that was March. I had to wait 6 months for the robotic equipment to be available. And for me, waiting 6 minutes is hard, never mind 6 months.
Things are good. You are, you're healthy. What got you into the doctor's office, Keith?
Well, just a yearly checkup, prostate checkup. They say you're supposed to start at 45. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, had the robotic surgery in September, successful. I even remember dancing out the door. And if you've ever seen or uncoordinated old guy dance, it's a sight to behold. But I was ready to start the last third of my life, healthy and happy with my lovely wife at my side. We're going to travel the world, and life was so good. Then reality intruded in the form of high levels of protein in my blood.
Keith, before we go into that story, since we are talking about the 2018 prostate cancer diagnosis, it was a routine check, right? It was supposed to be just your usual physical or your annual checkup with your PCP.
It wasn't pleasant, believe me. We were sitting down to lunch and the phone rang, and I don't know why, but I had a premonition that something might be amiss, because very few people call us at lunchtime. But and the expression on my face, Susan was just about ready to take the phone away from me. And I got my composure back, and he said, you do have prostate cancer, and you need to come in the office and we'll discuss the options. And they talked about, radiation and seeds and all that kind of stuff. And I said, no, I want it out of me. So he scheduled the surgery, but again, it was 6 months from the time he diagnosed me to he performed the surgery. It was not easy. I wasn't pacing the floors, but short of that, we had all kinds of activities. I'm always writing. So that's took up a lot of my time. And that takes me away mentally from worrying about the cancer. And I tend to take my cue from my doctors. I've been very fortunate. My doctors are the best of the best. And if they express, deep concern, real serious, if they get really concerned, I get really concerned. And I try not to, because, you pass that concern along to Susan, and then she's concerned. So I try to, we try to, in addition to the writing and the reading, try to do activities and keep busy. And, I really didn't have a lot of choice. You do what you can to keep busy, and, then September rolls around and you're ready. So I'm still not the most patient person by any means, but I've gotten better. And Susan's helped, and she's been my sole caregiver through this entire journey, and God bless her. She's just been phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best we can do, I think, in life, is just to take these steps. So Keith, you go through the surgery, all went well?
It did. I missed the Braves game that night, but hey, sacrifices have to be made. But yeah, it went fine. And like I say, I felt great. Came home a couple of days later, jogged out of the hospital, and everything was wonderful until follow-up lab work. 2-3 months later, revealed high levels of protein in my blood. Now, I don't know what that meant, but the expression on my urologist's face meant it wasn't good. And he referred me out to a hematologist, and this is where I got really lucky twice. The hematologist was right across the hall, which was nice, because we're in this suburbs about 45 minutes from Atlanta. The second part of my lucky streak there, if you will, is not only was she right across the hall, but she was, in my opinion, the best of the best. She was really phenomenal. And we went in on March 27th for our initial discussion, when Dr. Nadella said, "You have multiple myeloma," which is a rare blood cancer. I didn't know until we walked into her office on March 27th that I did. And you just deal with it.
So she had already gotten the blood work done that had been done at your
Correct.
urologist's office.
Yeah.
Was there any more blood work she required, or any other tests or biopsies?
I don't remember, to be very honest with you, but I don't think so. If I remember correctly, she just took what the urologist sent over, because they're right across the hall, and it was very clear that I did have multiple myeloma. I don't remember her doing anything.
Right. And so, Keith, in our earlier conversation, you had mentioned, you described it in such an incredible way of, when she said you have cancer, and this is the second time in just about a year or so, less than.
Yeah.
You went into a fog of denial. That's how you put it.
I did. Especially when she said, "At this time, there is no cure." But she went on, she's a straight shooter, and I really admire that about her, because, there's no beating around the bush with her. And I appreciate I'd rather have it that way. I'd rather have the honesty. And she went on to say, with the proper treatment, you can still live a long and healthy and productive life. And I had promised Susan that no matter what happened, medically speaking, I would live to be 95 so that we could dance at our 50th wedding anniversary.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. And how did Susan take it? She was there this time you said, to hold your hand.
Yeah.
What kind of a difference did that make?
It made all the difference in the world. We're a team, and, we do this all together. And I get my strength from her. Hopefully she gets a little from me. We were both kind of in shock, but we went home and mapped out our strategy to deal with it, which is, day by day, and we follow the facts and we follow the doctor's instruction. Once you found what you consider to be the best, your gut instinct tells you you have a great doctor, listen to her. And she steered me on this path where my last treatment was on October 28th, and I feel great. Right.
And you did ask her what a lot of, I think, people diagnosed with cancer ask, right? Which is how long do I have to live?
I did. And she said, there's no set amount of time. I mean, if you go on the internet and you say, how long can you live with multiple myeloma? It's like 5 years. Well, I'm talking to a woman recently. She's been living with myeloma for 31 years. If I get 31 years, I will have accomplished my goal, which is to be one of the few 3-time cancer survivors to live to be 100.
The good news, and I know you know this too, is that there's just so many developments happening now in myeloma.
Right.
So it's just changing so quickly. But you went through Revlimid, Velcade, and Dex, RVD, right? That was the first line treatment. Can you just talk us through what that meant in terms of appointments? And
I was, every couple of weeks, every 3 weeks or so, for the RVD, the infusions and what have you. But those are mostly things that can be taken at home. And I was very fortunate that my system accepted those 3 drugs readily, and I really didn't have any problems. I had one fall where I put my elbow through the wall, but beyond that, nothing. And to the point where after about 3 months, she said, we're going to send you down to Atlanta to the BMT group, which is part of Northside Hospital, blood marrow transplant group, to make sure that you are a viable candidate for stem cell transplant. And fortunately, I was. So this was like in June. And Susan and I went home, more treatments, more RVD, packed our bags mid-August to come back for 9 weeks of more treatments, more IV infusions daily, and then the stem cell transplant.
The stem cell transplant, of course. Yeah, it's when they told you about it, how did your hematologist, oncologist describe it? And walk us through the preparation mentally and physically.
He didn't
for
say
it.
a lot because, the Dr. Soul that I was seeing at BMT was the resident expert. And he really is. He's, another great doctor. I did a phenomenal job. Very, very, very easy process, collecting the blood, washing it, and then putting it back in me. Very smooth transition.
And let me ask you, Keith, what kind of a hospital is this that you're going to? Was it a community care or was it a large academic institution?
Well, no, Northside is very large here in Atlanta. I don't know, exactly what they call themselves. It's not a community hospital, certainly, but it is, along with Emory, one of the 2, de facto standard cancer hospitals in the Atlanta area. And they treated me, again, so well. I've been very fortunate. The doctors and the nurses and the staff that I have had the pleasure of working with have been phenomenal. However, there was one glitch in the my treatment called orthostatic hypertension. And as medical folks have explained it to me, when you're lying down, your blood pressure is measured and it's within normal range. When you're sitting up, your blood pressure is measured and it's within normal range. When you're standing up, you stand up, your blood pressure drops like a stone. So it's dangerously low levels. So you need to sit right back down and, read or play on your laptop or whatever till it subsides. But it can cause dizzy spells and it could cause falls like it did for me. I remember one night I fell 6 times in the same night trying to get up. But I would, caution anyone After, during, take your standing blood pressure or have someone take it for you. And that was the real only problem. We did have a little glitch, medically speaking, after the stem cell transplant went fine. I had a little problem after that with the medication they were giving me, but after they thought I was having a stroke, I couldn't get out a word or a sentence, but it turns out it was the mix of medications they gave me. The doctor came in and said, once you sleep it off, once it wears off in the morning, you'll be fine. And that was 4 years ago, and I haven't stopped talking since.
Any specifics though now? I know you're willing to talk to them separately, but any specifics now that you could offer in terms of the mental and emotional and physical recovery from the transplant and from treatment?
Yeah, it's not easy, obviously, but it's easier. And I have a friend who's a retired cardiologist who told me this. If you cultivate and maintain a positive attitude, it goes a long way to helping you beat cancer and get better every day. The alternative is you can be upbeat or you can be downbeat and depressed. And, certainly there's a lot of things to be depressed about in this world with, violence and worldviews and politics and inflation, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not easy, but, with the help of Susan and our little doggy and my family and friends back in Boston, I have been able to maintain and cultivate a positive mental attitude. And I'm convinced that has helped me so much.
So let's talk a little bit more then about, sort of the end of the last myeloma treatment for you. If you could describe a little bit more about what that was like and your follow-up now with your hematologist oncologist.
Unbridled joy. Let me show you this. On November 1st, Stephanie, of 2019, we walked into the BMT offices for the last time, and they handed me the certificate. It says, congratulations, et cetera, et cetera. And we drove home, and I was euphoric is, I guess, the best word to describe it. We drove in, we pulled in the driveway, and I remained fairly calm for both of us. And we pulled in, and this banner that says, congratulations, welcome home, Keith, was stretched across our garage door, signed by neighbors and friends. And I kind of lost it. I started crying like a baby. We were done with that portion of the treatment. And more than that, beyond Susan, we had so many caring, loving friends and family members all over the country. The emotion, it just swept over me. And it's often hard for me to describe, but after I was all cried out, pulled it together, we sat down and started talking about what we needed to do to get me back to where I am today.
So you are feeling great. You're like, okay, I've gone through 2 cancer diagnoses and 2 cancer treatments now in just a few years. Yeah. And by the way, the last treatment, so after the stem cell transplant, did you have any more treatment that you were having to do?
Yeah, I was on a maintenance Revlimid, which is basically, I think, remember, a pill a day. And I would go in about every month for IV infusion and an Xgeva shot, because multiple myeloma, one of its problem areas is it can weaken your bones. And I've gone to websites where pages of people have broken bones, fractured bones, and fortunately, I didn't have any of that. And I think a lot of that's due to the good care that Dr. Nadella and her team did.
So Keith, okay, thank you for sharing that. You've gone through your prostate cancer, you now have gone through myeloma. You have to go for regular follow-up still, right, with your hemonc.
Yeah, I go in, either once a month or once every couple of months. So, I'm still in what she determines, what she calls very good remission. And she's always told me that remission is kind of almost a vague term, that if you ask 6 hematologists, you get 6 different versions of, what remission is. And it's a moving target, so to speak. But, my last treatment was on October 28th and feeling wonderful. I did have another glitch in the system, so to speak, when I was diagnosed with melanoma in October 2021. I had a lump on the back of my neck. And I think I'm too old to have a pimple, so I know it wasn't that. So I had it checked, and they found out that was malignant melanoma, and I also had it in my right clavicle, the same thing. Successful surgery there, no looking back, no sign of it coming back. So, everything's, knock on wood, great at the moment. As long as, I'm having fairly regular CAT scans and PET scans, and as long as I don't see the words metastatic or terminal, I don't worry about it. Because I've been told, my friend Angie said it can be sneaky, it can come back. So if it comes back, I talked to Conalex, and she said, I said, if it comes back, will I need more surgery? She said, yeah, you might. And she said it kind of confidently, so confidently that she's not worried, I'm not worried. But even with myeloma in remission, if I get 31 more years, if I get 21 more years, I'll be thrilled. I don't know if Susan will be able to put up with me that long, but I guess we'll find out. But you take it one day at a time. You do the best you can to cultivate and maintain a positive attitude. You rely on your resources, like your doctors, your medical team, and just realize that you can live as normal a life as possible with multiple myeloma or other forms of cancer. I mean, you want to make sure you're not letting it beat you. You want to make every effort to beat it. I feel like God called on me because I'm strong, and with the help of family and friends, I would get through this, and I have. But Susan has a book downstairs. The cover says, God doesn't give you anything that you cannot handle. And I feel that's the case for me. Yeah, there's always a moment of, that type of thing, but I try not to dwell on it. I move past it and move on with my life. From time to time, you have your doubts. Everyone does. If I didn't, I wouldn't be human. But I try to minimize them if all possible. Sometimes when I'm private up here, alone up here in my second floor office man cave, I think about, why did he do it to me 3 times? And the answer always comes back to, because he knew I was strong enough to handle it. Be careful, get the best medical care you can, keep moving, but do it slowly, and enjoy, we have a finite amount of time on this planet. Do your very best to enjoy every moment, every day to the max. And I know it's not all that easy, but you have to do the best you can.